In today's video, we are going to see what happens when a man spends a night in the graveyard. This is a scary story, so make sure you watch this video till the end. So let's get started. Two friends named Rick and Ben were discussing about the paranormal things that happened at night. Rick said that he wasn't afraid of ghosts or anything like that. He could sleep anywhere at any time. Ben didn't believe him. He thought Rick was bluffing. So he challenged Rick to spend a night in the old graveyard near the town. Rick accepted the challenge without even thinking twice. In the evening, Rick came to the graveyard with a shovel and a blanket. He dug a shallow hole and laid down on the blanket in it. Then he covered himself with the leaves and went to sleep. Ben hid nearby and watched Rick closely. Rick was sleeping peacefully, but after a few minutes he started to mumble something. He was having a nightmare. Ben couldn't see Rick's face because of the darkness, but he could hear every word Rick was saying. "Get away from me. Please leave me alone," Rick screamed. Ben was scared, but he kept watching. Suddenly, the ground started shaking. The leaves on top of Rick started falling apart. Ben couldn't believe what he was seeing. A pale hand grabbed Rick's shoulder. It was bony and cold. Ben screamed, but his scream was caught in the bushes. Rick woke up with a jerk. He sat up and looked around. His eyes were wide with fear. "Was that real or just a dream?" he whispered. He looked at the place where his bag was kept. It was torn apart. All his belongings were scattered around. Rick got up and ran away from the graveyard. Ben came out from his hiding spot and went to Rick's bag. He took out his phone and dialed 911. Then he started searching for Rick. He called out his name, but there was no reply. Rick wasn't anywhere to be seen. At first, Ben thought Rick must have gone home. But when he checked his house, Rick wasn't there. He had vanished into thin air. Ben searched for him all night, but there was no trace. Next morning, Ben went to the graveyard to search for his friend. As the sun rose, the mist in the graveyard cleared away, and Ben noticed something horrible. There was a grave that wasn't there the previous day. It had Rick's name carved on it. Ben screamed at the top of his lungs, but nobody answered. Nobody even bothered to look at him. They all pretended like they couldn't hear him. Ben tried to dig the grave to take Rick's body out, but it was no use. No matter how hard he tried, the grave wouldn't open. Just then a witch came out from behind the tree. She was staring at Ben with a wicked smile. Ben screamed at her, "Why is Rick's grave not opening? What did you do to my friend?" The witch replied, "What you saw yesterday was just a small part of what goes on here at night. This is a sacred place, and only those who love darkness can enter here after sunset. You shouldn't have disturbed the peace of this place." Ben pleaded, "I'm sorry, I didn't know this. Please help me take my friend's body out." The witch shook her head and said, "It's too late now. Your friend is trapped in that grave, and there's no way you can bring him back. If you want to see him, you will have to go inside the grave yourself." Ben hesitated. He was scared, but his friend was inside that grave, and he wanted to bring him back home, so he took a deep breath and stepped into the grave. The walls of the grave were cold and slimy. Air inside was thick and heavy, making it hard to breathe. Ben stumbled and fell to the ground. As he tried to get up, he saw a pair of glowing eyes staring at him from the corner. Ben screamed and curled up into a ball. The eyes came closer and closer until Ben could see that they belonged to a dog. It was a big, scary-looking dog with sharp teeth and claws. Ben was paralyzed with fear, couldn't move or speak. The dog walked past him and went to the coffin, started growling and snarling. But it wasn't directed at Ben. It was clearly angry at whatever was inside the coffin. Suddenly, the coffin lid flew off, and a skeletal hand reached out, grabbing the dog's tail. The dog yelped and tried to pull away, but the hand only tightened its grip. More hands came out and grabbed the dog's legs, pinning it to the ground. The dog struggled for a few seconds before it stopped moving. Eyes lost their glow, and it went limp. Ben watched in horror as the skeleton crawled out of the coffin. It was tall and thin, with long, sharp fingers and teeth. It looked at Ben and smiled, revealing its sharp, pointy teeth. Ben screamed and tried to run, but he tripped over a grave and fell to the ground. The skeleton came closer, and Ben closed his eyes, waiting for the end. But it never came. He opened his eyes to see the skeleton kneeling beside him. It was reaching out a hand, and Ben hesitated before taking it. The skeleton pulled him up and helped him to his feet. Then it turned and walked away, leaving Ben to stare after it. As Ben followed the skeleton, he noticed that it was leading him through the graveyard to the old iron gate. The gate was locked, but the skeleton walked right through it, as if it wasn't there. Ben tried to follow, but he couldn't get through. He looked back at the skeleton and screamed, "Wait for me." The skeleton stopped and turned around. It gestured for Ben to go back the way he came, and then it disappeared. Ben hesitated, but he knew he had no choice. He went back the way he came and climbed out of the grave. He ran out of the graveyard as fast as he could, not daring to look back. When Ben told the townspeople what he had seen, they didn't believe him. They thought he was making it all up, but Ben knew the truth. He had seen the skeleton, and he had felt the icy cold touch of the grave. He had spent a night in the graveyard, and he would never forget what he had seen. The next day, Ben went back to the graveyard to pay his respects to his friend. He stood at the grave and whispered, "I'm sorry, Rick. I should have believed you." Suddenly the ground rumbled, and the grave started to shake. Ben screamed and ran away. Years passed, but Ben never forgot the graveyard and the horrors that lurked within. He often wondered if Rick was still trapped there, and he couldn't help but feel guilty that he hadn't believed his friend. One day, Ben decided to visit the graveyard one last time. He wanted to put some flowers on Rick's grave and say goodbye. But when he got there, he couldn't find it. He searched all over the graveyard, but he couldn't find anyone by the name of Rick. Ben was confused. He knew that Rick was buried there, but how could the grave be missing? Just then, an old woman approached him. She had a kind face, and Ben asked her if she could help him find a grave. The woman nodded and led him to a secluded part of the graveyard. There, in a clearing, was a small headstone. It read, "Here lies Rick," but there was no date of death. Ben felt a chill down his spine as he realized that Rick had been dead longer than he could remember. He had been buried in this graveyard for so long that his grave had become overgrown and hidden from view. Ben placed the flowers on the grave and whispered, "I'm sorry, Rick. I should have remembered." As he turned to leave, he saw the old woman standing behind him. "Do you know what happens when someone spends a night in this graveyard?" she asked. Ben shook his head. "Well," she said, "they never leave the same way they came in." Ben turned to look at the grave again, and he saw that it was shaking, screamed and ran away, knowing that he would never forget the horrors of the graveyard and the chilling warning of the old woman.